Hello guys, it's What Ifs here. This is going to be part 1 of What If Deku was experimented on. And, well, this What If is starting right as Deku is being born. Now, his mother Inko is surrounded by a plethora of both scientists and doctors. Since, well, Inko is a rather important individual in a certain company called Genetic Arc. Now, this company is going to be essentially the main bad guys of this What If. And yeah, now getting back to what I was saying with Inko. Now, as Inko gives birth to Deku, there's a small problem. Deku was born prematurely, and well, if he does not get immediate treatment, he's going to die rather soon. That's when Inko simply tells the scientists to do anything which can save her child. And the scientists do just that. They take Deku away from Inko and try and save him. Now, they try to save him by giving him a quirk prematurely. Now, this quirk is, well, it was called albino. The whole premises of this quirk is that rather minor quirk. It is essentially gives you the powers of an albino, well, an albino wolf. It gives you those types of powers. So you have all the strengths as a wolf, the speed, and with the side effect that all of your hair turns white. But sadly for Deku, he started spewing out blood immediately as the quirk was given to him, as the scientists simply saw that Deku was beginning to grow. And for a child who was prematurely given birth to, this isn't exactly a good thing to happen. And now, even though after the 5 minutes of, that is not 5 minutes, 5 hours of painful screaming in agony, which was more like screeching, but yeah. After all of that, Deku sadly didn't make it. He had grown to be at the size of a 3-year-old, even though he was, well, quite literally born only 5 and something hours ago. And that was a rather, well, a sad fate for Inko. And well, she went ahead to her son's body and she saw that the doctors tried to do anything to save him. She asked them this: "What exactly did you do to my son for him to grow this large?" With the other head scientist simply responding that they tried to give him an albino quirk, with Inko immediately scoffing and telling them that that was an extremely new quirk. It wasn't even a proper quirk. It was a mutation of 2 different quirks. With the doctor simply sighing and telling her that that was the only quirk they had on hand which could maybe save her son. And after that, Inko simply told them to, well, burn the body, because if the government found out that Deku had just been somehow grown to be 3 years old, that is, to have a body of a 3-year-old, and also that he has a quirk, the government and the police would be rather suspicious. So she simply tells them to kill him. That is, not to kill him, he's already dead. To burn his body. And now they tell Inko that they are going to do that. And as soon as Inko leaves, the head scientist simply smirks to himself. He tells to several of the guards there to take Deku and to put him on the operating table. Now, The next things which he did to Deku was involving several other quirks and also, well, a bit of cybernetics and also some genetic modifying. And yes, he gave Deku another quirk. Even though Deku was supposed to be dead, the scientist didn't give up yet, as he gave Deku a quirk simply called energy formation. This quirk was essentially used to create energy from, well, different sources of the world, of not the living world, that be. So anything which was alive, Deku could take its energy and then use it at his own will. And for now, the doctors don't exactly, that is the scientists, don't exactly know how well this is going to work on Deku. But them being the bastards they are, they don't care and they continue. Now, they start cutting open Deku. They completely get rid of both of his lungs, his stomach, and a lot of other vital organs. The only two organs which are left after that are, well, his heart and his brain. Even his eyes were taken out to be, well, for an experiment of sorts. And as they put Deku's now completely removed organs, they put him into a container labeled as food for subject 0526. And now these subjects are either failed experiments or experiments which are currently being tested on. So, yeah. And now they begin stuffing Deku with all sorts of stuff. Mostly cybernetics and even a couple of fast-growing DNA cells of different animals, including some rather extinct ones. So yeah, they give him, how do you say it, the genetical code of snakes, so that he has thermal vision. They give him the genetical code of, well, direwolves, those being the wolves which went extinct, I believe, like 50,000 years ago. So yeah, they also give him that. And after that, they gave him, well, that is, they gave him several new joints. So his arm usually only has 3 joints, or well, the 3 main ones. That being on the shoulder, in the middle of the arm, how do you say it, the elbow, and also the one connecting the hand. But instead of having only 3, Deku now had 4, with plans to give him even more once he grows up. And that wasn't the end of that. They also gave him a new cybernetical heart. So now Deku had 2 hearts. And some of the other experimentation or cybernetics they gave him was a pair of new eyes, which were still blank, because these eyes sort of reacted to different quirks somebody had. And they still don't exactly know what Deku's quirk is going to be, or what his eyes are going to be, because Deku hadn't used any of his quirks. And after all of that, they get out several scales, or, well, armored plates from another subject, or experiment, however you guys want to call them. Now, this time it came from subject 1032. Now, this subject was a rather large reptilian creature which to most people looked like a dragon, but in reality the way that thing fit wasn't, well, it was through a mouth, except on its head there was absolutely no mouth. It ate by essentially grabbing prey with its claws and then shoving it down its massive mouth on its belly. So yeah. But luckily for Deku, he will not be getting that feature. Instead, he simply got the armor of that reptile, or just for simplicity's sake, I'm going to go to dragon. He got that armor on both of his arms, most of his torso, and also on most of his legs. The only places where the armor wasn't would be the joints, because all of his joints and all of his bones were now, well, replaced with cybernetics, along with his spine, which is a rather terrifying feature of ripping out Deku's torso from his legs, for him to look a bit taller, and yeah. Now, after all of that was finished, they put Deku in a sort of a, well, healing tube. And, well, that's when they waited. For the next 4 months, they noticed that Deku's growth had been going, well, rather exponentially. In 1 month, he was able to grow from a 3-year-old's body all the way to a 7-year-old's. And in the next 2 months, from a 7-year-old's to a 9-year-old's. Because the larger the body was, the more augmentations had to be done. And that meant simply ripping out all of the human bones, then putting even more cybernetics into him. And after 1 year, Deku had a body of, well, almost a fully grown teenager. That is not fully grown, and an early teenager, like 13 to 14 years. And, well, after that, several injections, which were on the side of the tube, simply were shot out into both of Deku's arms, legs, his torso, leg, that is, his throat, and his head. And after that, a type of green liquid was simply pouring into his body. Now, this liquid was, well, let's simply call it negative energy. That is the main power source which this facility used. And as the negative energy went inside of Deku, it activated his second robotic heart. And when it activated that heart then started pumping blood into Deku's actual heart, which was kept in pristine, well, condition, along with his brain, due to several technological, well, implants which were made there. And so, after 1.5 years of Deku being dead, Deku opens his eyes. He doesn't know who he is. He doesn't know what he is, nor what he should do. Because, like I said, Deku had died immediately, literally 6 hours after he was born. But, yeah. And also, if you guys are wondering, this is essentially how Deku looks like. He doesn't have a mouth. That is, he does have a mouth, but the only way for anybody to see it is when Deku wants to chop off or, well, yeah, rip off somebody's head using it. Since his mouth can open 5 times more than any normal human's jaw. So yeah, rather terrifying sight to behold. And well, those horns which are on his head haven't grown fully yet. They're just small spikes on each side of his head. And as he opens his eyes, he doesn't know anything what to do. He touches the glass and uses his extra strength with his albino quirk completely, well, naturally. Because in these, well, 1.5 years, as Deku was growing in the pod, his quirk was slowly assimilating with his new body. And that is exactly what happened. He breaks out of the containment, and as soon as he does, One of the scientists presses a button which sends an immediate electrical shock at Deku's brain. That was a horrible idea, because in a span of no less than 15 seconds, Deku is holding that scientist's heart in his hand, as he essentially made a hole in his chest with his bare hand. And after that, he squeezed the heart, and yeah, a satisfying explosion of blood could be seen, essentially. Like when you pop a water balloon. And yes, after that, the other scientists call in for the guards. And yeah, after 5 dozen guards were sent into the experimentation area where Deku was, after 7 minutes of waiting, none of the guards had reported back. And after that, well, after that, the main researcher simply provided subject 0093 to be sent to the same room and to subdue Deku, currently known as subject 1257. And just as that had been made, Deku had a new whole enemy to deal with. Now, Spike, which was how everyone called him, or another subject, that being subject 0122, called him Spike. Now, this was one of the more intelligent people, or, well, experiments, and he essentially looked like this. Now, he was about 100 or so years old at this point. Since, yeah, his original quirk was that he couldn't age after he became the age of 60. So, yeah, but after the, well, Genetic Arc company got their hands on him, they experimented quite a lot. They gave him several new quirks, and along with genetical materials from a porcupine and all of the other stuff. And due to several, well, mutations with the DNA of the porcupine and several other quirks, one of the quirks being that he could manifest crystals from his arm, yes, both of his arms were now engulfed in a strange purple substance, which was later recalled to be dried up blood, which was then hardened to such an extent that his arms are now capable of breaking through diamonds. So yeah, he is rather strong. And also his spikes have the same type of ability. Although they can't break diamonds, they can easily go through steel. And after this, subject 0093 was sent to deal with Deku, or trap him at least. As he entered the room, he simply saw what to him looked like a child. Because, well, not exactly a child, since Deku at this point was over 7 feet tall. So yeah, all of the extra augmentations paid off, I would say. And after Spike entered the room, he simply saw the carnage. All 50 of the guards and the scientists which weren't able to escape, Spike saw them all carved up into bits and pieces. Not a pretty sight for sure. Most of the guards' heads were completely chopped off. Some of them had bite marks all across their bodies, while some of them... Sorry about that, guys. So, anyways, right. As Spike entered the room, he saw at least 70 corpses all around Deku. Now, most of these four corpses were guards or members of the security detail, and most of them either had all of their heads chopped off, their hearts pissed through, their bodies completely and utterly shredded, or one of the more rather painful deaths, that being their skulls crushed into the wall. Now, as Spike sees Deku on essentially on a pile of corpses, he starts speaking, and this is what he says. Hey, kid, listen, I know that you're a bit freaked out currently, but yeah, I've been sent here to either detain you peacefully or violently. Now, that's up to you. And before Spike could finish his sentence, Deku simply jumps towards him and exactly as his hand is about to pierce through Spike's heart, Spike takes his right hand and simply blocks it, with Spike simply remarking that Deku is a lot more sturdy than he thought. And after that, he takes his leg and kicks Deku in the stomach, or in the torso, since Deku currently doesn't have a stomach. And yeah, after that little exchange, Spike simply looks at Deku and then says to himself, the violent way it is. And that's when they begin to have a fight. And I would call it a duel, but Deku simply slashing and, well, trying to do anything to kill him in any way possible. I would not consider that a duel. And yeah, as all of that is currently going on, the head scientists of the project, called simply Project Arc Genesis, that being the codename for Deku, yeah, he is rather satisfied with the results. Deku is immensely powerful. His speed is great, although it could be better. And that's when he simply replies to one of the scientists to prepare another quirk which utilizes speed. But before he can directly say that to the scientists, they simply hear a thud. That thud being Spike going through the pure magnetized steel wall. And magnetized steel is essentially extremely small pieces of steel being held together by a magnetized force field, which currently is several times stronger than diamond, and which is something even Spike can't break through with his arms. And now, as they look there, they simply saw that Deku's eyes are completely black, except the dark blue, well, pupils which he has. And that also off of his horns, legs, hands, and torso, a dark blue energy is coming off. And with that, the head scientist is immediately thrilled, because Deku is now using his second quirk. That being, I believe that I said it was energy manipulation. And yeah, Spike basically jumps right back into the room. He uppercuts Deku, and now Deku is strong, but his head is one of the few pieces, or well, parts of his body, which is rather not so, how do you say it? He doesn't have a lot of armor, unlike the rest of his body. And so that's when the head scientist, yet again, simply tells them, Doctor, excuse me, Dr. Michael, can you please write down that we need to increase the subject 1257's endurance, stamina, and also give him extra armor on his head? Yes, doctor. Yes, sorry, guys. Yes, doctor, right away. Although we don't have any sort of quirks which can increase his speed yet. We have several quirks which control lightning, but they're not exactly what we are looking for. And that quirk might have some negative side effects due to subject 1257's or Deku, with Deku having an energy manipulation quirk already. We can try to do something with them, like a hybrid, although there's a chance that both of the quirks would be weaker, so after all, we should probably wait for another speed quirk to arrive, with the head scientist nodding in agreement. And just as they finish their little talk, they hear another thud. As they turn around, they see Deku impaled by several spikes, which subject 0093, or codenamed Spike, sent to him. And now, due to several complications, Deku is now too tired to even move properly, let alone fight. And after that, Deku simply falls onto the ground face first. The head scientist simply tells Spike that he can go back to the main training area, with Spike simply nodding in agreement. But before Spike goes, he asks the head scientist this. Hey, Doctor, I have a request for you. With the scientist replying, or the head scientist, which all of them call the Doctor. As he replies, and what exactly would your request be, Spike? Can I get subject 1257? What would the reason for that be? For training purposes, since from what I can see, he might be great friends with subject 0172. Because from what I heard, she's in need of some company, is she not? With the Doctor simply replying, if subject 1257 and subject 0172 were to meet, both of them are currently the newest and also the most heavily genetically and, well, modified experiments, with Deku probably being the more powerful of the two of them, but with subject 0172 being rather strong in her own right and also better in certain assassination circumstances. With Spike then simply telling to them, well, you can't exactly have normal teachers teach them everything which they need to know, so I'm pretty sure that I'm going to be good for the job. With the Doctor replying, I guess you do have a point there. Fine. 3 months from now, Deku, codename, well, actually we don't have a codename for him yet. I know that Inko was going to call him Izuku, but we're going to stick with subject 1257 for now. with Spike replying, again without subject analysis. Fine then, let's go. Anyways, I'm going to go now, so you can deal with him, right? With the doctor replying, yes, subject 1257 is going to be handled properly. Alright, not my problem, at least not for another 3 months. And as Spike leaves the room and goes to the main training area, or his own private quarters, the guards, along with the scientists and researchers, bind up Deku yet again. And as Deku is put on several of the, just like I said, the magnetized steel, chains, so he can't escape. And after that, they remove the spikes which Spike had thrown into Deku, and also prepare for another bit of, well, genetic modification. With that one being that they now make his horns grow even larger, and also put a new layer of armor from the Dragonoid, so that Deku doesn't die if he's hit with an extremely powerful punch in the jaw. And along with that, they also give him a new endurance quirk. That quirk simply being called Iron Wall. And the quirk's essential format is that it theoretically gives you just as much endurance as an iron wall would have. And although in hindsight it's not that much more of endurance, when you put that wall to support that is Deku's armor, it's a rather powerful asset to have. And after that, the doctor simply leaves and goes ahead to the main Council of the Four Fingers. Now, the Council of the Four Fingers is the main body of the entirety of the company of the genetic arc. The four fingers all symbolize a different part of the company. The first finger being DNA collection, research, and experimentation. The second finger was security, those being the security guards, the agents, and also the specific people which go out into the world and try and get even more. Well, essentially they're also kidnappers, taking people with strong quirks, taking children which were thought to be dead and taking them to their own laboratories. The third finger is the politics section. Those being the people who are out front, the faces of a company which puts on a, well, shall we say, a silver face. And behind that silver face is the true grotesque murderers, experiments, and everything else which the company does. And then the fourth finger, which the only reason the fourth finger isn't a part of the third finger is simply because of a bit of a civil war which they had. Because currently in this timeline, 20 years before Deku was born, the company only had 3 fingers as its main bodies, but after the leader of the third finger was assassinated by one of his rivals, they sort of went into a civil war, shall we say, and the third finger was split into, well, the third and the fourth. The third one being politics, and the fourth one being economy. And the third and fourth fingers absolutely despise each other, when to such an extent that a member of the political finger and a member of the economical finger quite literally can't be in the same room so they don't kill each other. And, well, as I said, the fourth finger is economy. They focus on getting the proper funds to fund the entire company, and they also give them out fairly, even to the third finger, which they absolutely hate. Because all four fingers know that if one of the main bodies goes down, the entirety of the company will fall. And with that quick explanation, this is going to be the end of part 1 of What If Deku was experimented on. I hope all of you guys enjoy this video, and I also hope that all of you guys have a great day. Anyways, this is What Ifs, signing off.